Hi, SuccessNP. Your host, Sandra Pagenta here, and I am with Saundra Lauer. She attended graduate school at North Dakota State University, where she obtained her doctorate in the nursing practice. She's a family nurse practitioner. She is currently practicing in Alexandria, Minnesota, where she worked as a hospital nurse for 5 years and then has experience as a nurse practitioner in rural medicine. She practiced as a provider in broad spectrum family medicine, as well as some ER medicine. And she's opened Well, which is a full spectrum primary care facility with subspecialty and aesthetics as her personal NP business. And she's going to come on today and drop all the gems. Let's get started on your journey and kind of take me through kind of what inspires you to take your leap into owning your own practice. Because a lot of nurse practitioners are like, that's super scary. I could never do it. There's a lot of like mental red tape to this obstacle in our career. And I want to hear what took you there. What made you take the leap?
Maybe 15 years ago, saw a really significant shift in how healthcare was delivered through our graduates as a nurse, through graduate school, and then as we started practicing medicine and family practice. And I had this kind of defining moment where I was like, I don't think I can practice family medicine in this capacity for 30 more years, right? Not only was how healthcare was delivered was changing, but the direct impact on patient and patient outcomes and access to care and affordability of care. And really, it was at that moment, I was like, I'm going to do something different here. I didn't know what it was exactly. It wasn't until 4 years later that I really had this calling to start Well. And really, it was at its basis, and it's still at our foundation to provide affordable, quality, and accessible healthcare to our population. Actually, it was a patient interaction, which I think as providers, as you practice, you're humbled by your patients every day, right? When you let go of that ego, which can be in healthcare almost stifling, right? And then when you are humbled by your patient. And I was saying, oh gosh, it was some test. It was an MRI for some diagnostics. And I'm like, I don't know how much that's going to be. I don't know what your insurance is going to cover. And this patient looked at me and go, well, if you don't know, how am I supposed to figure this out? And it was this epitome of like, how are we as providers expecting patients to change healthcare when we don't even know how it operates and works? And it was a defining moment where I got to find out how and why and just try and deliver this a little bit differently.
I hate to go a little conspiracy theory, but sometimes I wonder that like the barriers that providers have to knowing that information, I sometimes wonder, why is that? Like, why is it not transparent? When you go to the restaurant and you order a bowl of, I don't know, a poke bowl, it's $11.95, right? The price is right there. It's just everybody knows what the price is, right? And so for whatever reason in healthcare, it's a very different vibe where it's like nobody knows. There's this veil that nobody knows. It's like, I don't know how much it's going to cost you. Like, good luck. Yeah, I agree.
And conspiracy versus, and we could get into that someday if you wanted to, Sandra, but more of like what we're taught is focus on providing the care, right? Leave that to administration, leave that to billing, leave that to insurance. And there are a ton of barriers, and we're enabled as providers, right? I can say that now. Opening a company, I mean, when they say there's 6 people hired per provider to operate in the traditional setting, I believe that, right? You've got referrals department, billing department, you've got coding, and then HR and marketing, right? All these things that go into it. We do our job and we do it well. We see more people than we should in a short period of time. And that's part of the reason I started Well too, was to have appropriate time with patients, develop that relationship. But I think it depends on how you operate, whether you're okay with, I would say, Sandra, how many times are we okay saying, I don't know the answer to this, but I'm going to keep going versus digging.
Oh.
And then ignorance is bliss kind of motto sometimes, but you get to that point, I think, in your career where you either dive into it or you don't.
Yes. Oh, I like that what you're saying. There's this acceptance of, I don't know, and I really just don't care to know. And so I'm not going to really work on that. And I think that, again, maybe a little conspiracy theory, but I think the systems are counting on us not wanting to do the work. And as nurse practitioners, I love that you begin to identify things in your career that were going to bother you from a longevity standpoint. It's like, yeah, I could do it now, but what does this look like in 30 years from now? And that's a great question. I always ask, and I always tell my listeners to begin with the end in mind. What does that look like at the end when you've been in this system and you're like, still don't know? Okay, good luck. And again, that curiosity to just go, I'm going to go down the rabbit hole. I'm going to see what's going on down there. How did you build that confidence and in yourself to start as a business owner? And was it a gradual thing? Were you just kind of stumbling through it? Or was it just like it clicked?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a couple things here. This is loaded. I wish we had 5 hours to talk. You'll have to have me back because we'll go on a lot of tangents here. But certainly, I'm a faith-filled woman, believe in God. God was with me the entire time. Okay,
come on, girl.
No way could I have done this without. Okay,
Amen.
And so you look back, people are like, replicate this. I'm like, I can give you the framework. I can look. And when I opened, I had a 9-month-old and a 2.5-year-old.
Come on, mama.
It was wild. And you look back, you're sleep deprived. I was still doing locum ER work because I didn't think we'd make enough money to pay bills, right? I mean, you were operating on prayer. Okay. Yeah. And so let's lay that down. That was
Amen. Foundation. Love that.
But I will say, and I consult a lot of individuals that are seeking, like, oh my, the same questions you're asking me. I say, you fake it till you make it, and you're faking it your whole life. You just acquire knowledge and you build on those experiences. And so one of your questions, and what I get asked all the time, is, I'm afraid to do this. What is, fear factor as a component of this? I would say the scariest part was having one leg in, one leg out, and making that choice to transition. And it's been fun since. Okay. That's the scariest part, is just deciding to do it and deciding you're going to see it through and redefining what failure looks like.
Oh my gosh. There's so many nuggets in what you just said. First, being a mom of children, that's nuts to me. I don't even know what you were taking. Just pass it under the table, girl, because I don't know how you have the energy to do it, because that is crazy. I think that's honestly the biggest feat in everything you just said to me. But then what you're saying, that kind of burn the ships mentality, you were kind of half in, half out, right? You were like, keep the ships going. We got kids to feed. We got mouths, we got insurance. There's all these things in the back of your mind as a mom that are a red flagging and alerting, you can't do it. And then, you're saying, this pivotal moment where you were just burn the ships. We're going for it. That's when the fun started. Is so cool to hear. And I love that, because there are fears and challenges when you're deciding to branch out on your own as an NP. There's so much that our hospitals do for us. Again, conspiracy theory, maybe they're doing it for us just to kind of keep us a little more chained. But I mean, how did you overcome those fears at that pivotal moment where you were like, 1 foot in, 1 foot out? Stop being lukewarm. Go for it. At that point, how did you overcome that? That's crazy to me with kids. How'd you do it?
I think it comes down to that, and what we live by, and how I built the business and my business plan. And when I'm telling people or consulting them, it's step 1, develop a business plan, because within that is a framework of your mission, your vision, and it will evolve and change. I mean, it's almost comical looking back at my original business, but what hasn't changed is the absolute mission and vision to provide this quality, affordable, and accessible healthcare for people in my community. So I love community, and you don't build a business to make money. That's the number 2 question from fear, is how much money do you make? And this conversation people won't love, because there's no guarantee. But I will tell you, if you choose to merge healthcare and your calling to help people with an entrepreneurial mind, it is not necessarily to make money. It is to make change. And when you go into that mindset, it does remove the stress. Money will come. When you're living out a passion and you're filling a gap in your community needs assessment, right? Money will come. We've been able to, again, absolutely God-driven, but as always provide with the mission to help people. So financially, yes. I consulted a doctor the other day that wanted to start their own business, and first thing they said was, well, do you think I'll make $400,000 my first year? I said, no. Wow. How is that your first question, though? I said, reframe that. Why are you going into this? What are the driving forces? And if it is not to help people, I do discourage it.
Yeah.
Because if it wasn't for that, this would have broke me, right? If you were going into this, choose a different career than medicine to make money, right? How many times do you say that? We don't go into it for essentially recognition or money. You go into it to help people. Yeah. And that's certainly no different than going into your own independent practice.
Wow. I, again, love that mindset shift. And They say this in all the successful books. That's why I love the name SuccessNP, because I love this journey towards what is success in life. And this journey of getting to that spot where you can say you're successful for so many people looks like money. It looks like the attainment of things. And what you will find, and they've done studies on millionaires and billionaires, and they ask them, what are the most important aspects of them? And it's back to what you're saying, which is, I wanted to just make a change. I wanted to make things better. I wanted to help people. I wanted to be a servant. I sought to serve, and therefore the money will come after that. Because when you are practicing in that vein, people know it. They can recognize it, and they will put their financial backing towards you because they know she's looking out for me. She's taking care of me. And that's not her goal, is not to just make a lot of money and buy a lot of things and just be rich and just self-focus, me. It's the focus in on others. It's the focus outwardly that brings that eventual goal towards success, which ends up at the end of your life not looking like the things that you will leave. You will leave these things here on earth, but it looks like time freedom with your children, with your family, getting to invest in the relationships, getting to have those experiences that are important to you, or whatever it is that's important to you, because you have the freedom of your time. And so I just think that's incredible what you've just said. And I think more nurses and nurse practitioners need to hear that is what gets you there. That's what gets you to be successful. It's not the focusing on the dollar amount. It's the focusing on, are we helping people here? Is that what we're doing? And making that the center. So for the nurse practitioner that's considering starting their own practice, what would you say is a great foundation, a great starting point to just go start here, business plan, and then move here, and then there, and then maybe think about it. Do you say start part-time? Do some like a part-time side hustle thing while you got your, kind of like what you said, have your foot in both worlds, right? Because when you've got more increased responsibility, children, family, which nurse practitioners tend to be a little bit older and they have those responsibilities, how do you kind of bridge both of those worlds? What are some steps that a nurse practitioner could take?
Right. And I think those are great questions. The business plan is absolutely foundational, and finding someone, not necessarily a friend, but someone within the business. So I tried to find a mentor, right? It was like, I need some, but there is definitely gatekeeping between MD and NP in private practice. There's a lot of blogs and resources for MDs to start direct primary care practices. And a lot are very vocal about non-autonomous practice for nurse practitioners. And granted, this was 5 years ago, and I think that's probably evolving. I'm not in that world anymore of seeking consultation from peers in startup business. But essentially now there are some available resources because more nurse practitioners are doing that. So I would seek a consulting NP that can help walk you through those beginning stages, because it's a lot. I just didn't have that when I started. And like I said, you're more operating in the world of probably MD collaboration. Start your business plan. Find someone that's not a friend, but a sound peer that has hopefully some experience in entrepreneurship, and start marching out those numbers. I don't think there's anything wrong with having your feet in both, a responsible fiscal plan for this. Yeah. But I will say, if you're going to define whether you have a micro or macro practice is a big deal. A lot of individuals do side micro practices, right? So they don't have a brick and mortar. They're doing a lot of telehealth services. That's great. And you can probably operate 2 jobs in that capacity.
Yeah.
Having a brick and mortar and a full-on primary and urgent care facility, and you're starting this, you can't operate in both. I've hired nurse practitioners part-time that have tried to operate in both, and you can't. They're completely different walks of life and callings to how to provide care. So I can't hire part-time nurse practitioners anymore that are practicing in traditional and my practice. It is very hard as an owner to do that too. So I would have whatever amount of money you need saved. I mean, generally speaking, it was about $250,000 to start a brick and mortar practice. Wow. And so you take it alone. I certainly didn't have financial support, right? We took a lien out on my house. It was a big step. But I had faith in that it would be fine. But concomitantly, I did work for 6 months, night ER, weekends, local. So you've got to get uncomfortable. That you want is outside of your comfort zone. You got to be okay doing that. There's no work-life balance in the first 5 years. It's just a different way of life.
That's real. That's raw. Like you gotta. I think I've read somewhere where it's like You'll spend your whole life, you'll spend 40 years working for a business. 40 years, guys. 40 years, depending on however long you have on this planet, which none of us know. But you won't spend 5 years working for yourself, right? And so that's the mindset. When I hear the number, when I hear the time, I think, oh God, 5 years. Years are going to go. In fact, I then had a conversation just yesterday with a nurse practitioner, and she's like, you just got to put in your 20 years. It's like, and her statement made me pause, Saundra. Like, I paused for a second, and I was like, and I know all these things. I've been reading these books and trying to inundate my mind with this mindset shift. And it's true. Like, you do get in that mindset of like, it's just 20 years. It's like, but it's just 5. Set yourself free. Do you hear that? Like, and so having that mindset shift from transitioning from a healthcare provider in a system to an entrepreneur that is a business owner is going to require growth in you. It's going to require a neuroplasticity in you to grow into this thing that I almost get emotional talking about it. But at the end of your life, you look back and think of who you've become. And it's all about the journey, right? It's all about the journey. It's not about the destination. And this growth from Saundra at the beginning of her business to who you are now, you don't even recognize that girl. You're just like, who's that girl? I don't even know her. And that is the beauty of living. That's the beauty of life, is to be able to look back and go, who's that girl? Who's she grown from? Where has God brought her to? What spot is she in now? And I just think it's such a beautiful journey. It's what's on my cup right now. Says enjoy the journey. Like, I love that whole mindset of like, just get in there and just watch yourself move into this and metamorphosis of who you are. And I think it's so great that we have a degree. We've spent our time learning to care for people that can give us the opportunity to grow who we are. I just think it's so neat. And I just love that so much.
It's a beautiful mindset. Really, it's an absolute difference than you've got this degree as an end all. That was the beginning, right? You look at that, that was the foundation, was putting in the time and sacrifice for schooling. That was foundational. And that was very much so just the beginning. But it does. And I always tell nursing, I think, is one of the most wonderful careers where you can evolve and create and change as you go. It's the most freeing, I think, career that you can have. So I always just encourage people, whether, you start your career as a CNA, LPN, RN, get your master's, doctorate, what that looks like. You don't have to work in traditional medicine setting either. I highly encourage it. Certainly prior to doing it, I chose my job at rural medicine for the experience I was going to gain, right? That I could a ton of practice primary and urgent care confidently.
Smart.
Yeah. Do you practice in the emergency room?
I do not. I work in surgical services.
Okay.
Yeah.
So be smart about it. Gain the right skill set where you can be autonomous, because for a while you might be a sole provider. Leaning into, though, your network you've developed over those 10, 15 years with your peers. My phone a friend list was pretty high the first year, right? I couldn't afford a consulting service like Rubicon MD, where now we send all our referrals to, and within 24 hours, I hear from nephrology, cardiology, rheumatology, sleep medicine. I can afford that right away, right? And so instead of traditional medicine where you call 0, connect me with on-call cards, I was it. And I had to rely on that network. So maintaining professionalism in every point of your career is absolutely the utmost, because those are the relationships you lean on when you need them.
Ooh, like asterisk right by what you said, asterisk, maintaining those relationships. Don't tank your job just because you're like, all right, I'm out of here. I'm going to go ahead and just like, I'm just going to show out before I leave. It's like, okay, so if you are thinking strategically about your career, you may need that person again. So do your best to leave with dignity, leave with respect. And I love that just keeps coming back up as a theme as I talk to all these entrepreneurs and nurse practitioners and nurses, is just begin with the end in mind. Because I think that from my career, I took whatever job I was offered. I was not thinking about the end. And maybe there is a level of that naivete or lack of planning in the youthfulness, right? I was 25, 23, 24 when I was in nursing school. I was still very young. I didn't have children. I think once you have kids, you get married, there's a level of like clarity that you're just like, what am I doing? What's happening? Like your time becomes a lot more like, I don't know, just you kind of hone in a little bit. You get naturally honed in. and I worked out different steps. But I'm just speaking for myself. I definitely did not do that. I definitely did not pick a career and think, okay, eventually I could own my own business. So I should probably like spend some time with a nurse practitioner doing this. Well, I had no children. I had nothing to do. I could have been grinding, Now, are you kidding? I grind. I just grind. I grind at home. Okay. That's what I'm grinding. Good luck.
Yeah, exactly.
So I really want a nurse practitioner that's single, that's just like, oh, woe is me. Now's the grind time, girl. Start grinding. Boy, girl, start grinding. Because if you do it now, you plant those seeds now, just like Sandra's saying, you can end up being able to step into something because you prepared yourself for it. Whereas now I'd have to go talk to a primary care. Can I hang out with you? I'd have to like pretty much preceptorship myself back to that spot because I don't have the experience. It's been so long. So I think that's really, really great. That's a great little gem that you're dropping. Okay. So one of the things that you talked about, and I kind of want to focus in on, is the doubt part, because the doubt is big. The doubt is huge. I mean, I think that's kind of one of the biggest hurdles in this whole thing. What would you tell a nurse practitioner that is worried about that first step into entrepreneurship with the fear of failure? Like, what if I fail? Right? Which I love that, because then you just go, well, what if you don't? I love that. But what do you tell her? Like, what would you look back and go, I wish I would have known this. And if I would have known this, I would have done that. But even regardless of that, just know this.
I think every day as you pour into yourself, and you've talked about neuroplasticity and being uncomfortable and what that takes, it's sometimes hard reflectively going back to that point where you have fear. And I think it goes down, again, reiterating, is why are you doing this? If the purpose is money, don't do it. Right? And I've gotten comfortable now talking with individuals that are like, I want to do this, or I want this to be my side hustle. That's not it. This is your calling, and you've got to pour your heart and soul into it. Are you ready to die to this every day? And if your mission and vision and calling and purpose is on track, failure is a funny thing where I don't even look at failure as like fear anymore. It's like, what am I going to learn from this? Because that's all you do. You fail, or something doesn't go as planned. Great. What did we learn, and how are we going to do it differently next time? And the biggest thing that will set people apart from success, and I've seen it, right? There's been pop-up micro healthcare facilities that have failed in the first 3 years, right? Statistically speaking, I would say if you're not pouring, again, those foundational components of why you're doing this, and if you fail once and don't learn from it and change trajectory, you will fail.
Attention, all nurse practitioners and NP students. Are you tired of feeling the disconnect between clinical rotations and didactic teaching? Say hello to SuccessNP's clinical booklet guides.
As NPs ourselves, we know how valuable it is to have a resource that helps bridge the gap between clinical and class. So we created the digital resource to do just that. Our clinical booklets cover 5 major NP tracks: psych, adult, peds, family, and women's health. SuccessNPs wants to create tools and provide support NPs need to thrive in their careers.
So why wait? Check out our SuccessNP Etsy shop, linked in the show notes, for our digital guides and other digital clinical resources. Now, let's get back to the conversation.
Yeah.
In
the
that
rebound.
Then you will learn from it.
Yeah.
So I would say changing that vocabulary of what failure is. You will only learn from your mistakes, and you're going to make them every day. I tell my employees, I don't expect perfection. How do you respond to failure, though? What do you do in response to something going wrong? I don't care that you made a mistake. Just as I hope they don't hold me accountable. I make mistakes every day.
Yeah.
Right? You're building the plane as it's flying. It's one of my favorite quotes. One of my employees said during a review at the first year we were open, they're like, it just feels like we're building the plane as it's flying. I'm like, absolutely we are. And we're creating it as we're doing it. And so this plane will never crash. We're just going to build it as we go. And so really changing that mindset. Perfection is not success at all. And that's an unrealistic expectation. You will have so many learning moments, and then thank God for them every day, because they get you to the point you need to be at.
Yeah. It's not how you fail. It's how you rebound from failure. It's how you keep going. And again, these are concepts that I think nursing focus very heavily on. We have to be perfect. We've got to administer the medication appropriately. We have to make sure we don't make any mistakes. We're the last line of defense. And our schools set us up this way too. You take a test, 100% means you made no errors. Good for you. You're the best student in the room. There are all these little tiny micro encouragements that we get throughout our lives that really foster stay away from mistakes, stay away from errors, because then you're doing it right. And it really prevents nurses in particular that are very good students. They're trying really hard. They want to make sure that they're doing the right things in practice and in school. And then you get into the fear of failure, the fear of mistakes. And then you go, mistakes are bad. I got punished in school for mistakes. And entrepreneurship really is this different beast of, no, mistakes are how you learn. That's how you get to success. It's actually the opposite. It's counterintuitive to what you've been taught in nursing school, in nurse practitioner school, and in life. You actually need these errors because so many of these people that I read their books and listen to, they say they've learned way more from their failures than they ever learned from the successful moments. And so many high functioning, very successful people, they say that constantly, that when I lost this, I shifted. When I did this, I moved. And so it changes you. And I think we need to be less afraid of fear of failure. We need to be less afraid of making mistakes. And then again, focusing in on building from your mistakes. You know, that plane when you're flying, it made me think of that movie Madagascar. I don't know if you have kids, but you do, right? You have a couple kids. And then when they're building that plane and the penguins are like, oh, Kowalski. And it's the funniest scene in that whole movie.
That's the most beautiful analogy of entrepreneurship.
Those penguins, the monkeys building it, and it's just a disaster, but it flies. For whatever reason, that plane flew.
And truly, it goes back to that. What did you learn from nursing school and your foundation of education that put you to where you are now? It's be sound in your approach to policy, procedure, and standard of care. Do not make mistakes in those. But when it comes to how it's delivered, that's where creativity happens. It really is. And it doesn't have to be how everybody else does it. Because kind of newsflash, right? We're not doing great in the current healthcare setting in family practice, right? You say, people are like, oh gosh, you've got relative success in this. I'm like, the bar is kind of hell, you guys, right now in family practice.
You're not wrong. You're so not wrong.
I don't have to be that great. I'm not that great of a provider. I love what I do, and I know patients feel that. And they feel it through the mission of well. But seeing a patient same day on Friday, yesterday, I saw 2 peds patients that couldn't get into their traditional facility. And it was like I was something magical, that I could see their child the same day, right? So when I say the bar is here, not because our providers, we got wonderful providers. This is not a provider situation, a system situation.
Come on.
Business of healthcare, that's the situation. But I'm saying the bar is pretty low to provide exceptional care right now because of the accessibility of care right now and the affordability and price transparency. So when you find that need, which our whole country needs, this isn't a secret. You build a practice around that and a calling given to you for helping people, you will be successful.
Dang. I like, that's facts. I don't even know what else to say. That's so true. The bar is so low as we look at these metrics for health along the spectrum, children to adult to elderly. We're failing our patients in a lot of ways, health-wise. And so, that is I didn't even think about that. You just opened my mind up to that fact. And I'm just going to kind of build on what we talked about and just kind of get us through to this spot, because I think this is another thing. So say you find the financing, you get going, you get a small business loan, you mortgage your house, I don't know, whatever you're doing, you're figuring it out. How do you, once you kind of get started and you move up to that financially insecure, secure spot, how do you then grow your practice? Like, what tactics are you doing to keep it coming, to keep the money and the flow and the mission going?
So you kind of nailed it, right? So business planning, one-on-one. That's why I reiterate, and I probably said it 4 times now, business plan, you've got goal year 1, 3, 5, 10 plus. So you're planning for the end in the beginning, just as we do our whole careers. And you are very creative in how your revenue streams are coming in. So this can't be all on hopes, prayers, and I just know it's going to work out. And it does. It's wonderful to have faith, but you have to have strategy. And so when part of my business plan was 4 primary tiers of revenue, right? So you've got your primary urgent care. We had specialty medicine. So that's a lot of what I do. I have subspecialties in hormone management, endocrine. That's been wildly successful. And then medical aesthetics we've talked about. We offer subspecialties in medical aesthetics from facials, injectables, laser, but certainly a lot of acne care. So really niche population we care for. And then in sales of product sales. Then actually we added a 5th tier, and that was where we offer employer health benefits, right, to companies. And so sort of like maybe fractional clinics for businesses or on-site health. So not all businesses can afford that. You need about 500 patients to be able to afford your own on-site clinic for it to be advantageous financially for that company. So what about for everyone with 500 less employees? So we are actually a fractional clinic on off-site clinic for 20 companies now. And so, yep, it's wonderful. It took 5 years of education, a lot of trust within the community, but now we serve over 23 companies as their accessible free clinic for their business. And so it's been wildly successful. And so you start looking at these puzzle pieces that come in for revenue streams to maintain the cost of operating your business. So 2024 was a down year for aesthetics, but it was an up year for our business revenue for employer health. So you can see where don't have all your eggs in one basket, right? Whatever, you're growing multiple legs of your business and revenue streams. And so you're being very strategic about that. So that starts from day one though, right? When you're formulating, how am I going to make money? Because primary care actually isn't sexy. I don't know if you knew that. Like you go, people don't need it until they need it, right? Yeah. So you go like, hey, we've got this great care. Come see us. Well, I'm not sick, right? And we're in a sick care like nation right now and how we approach healthcare. So that is a slow grow in regard to family and individual health. And so having multiple revenue streams is definitely would be advantageous to your bottom line. So being smart in that way, but otherwise then building on that and pouring into the areas. You start learning really quick HR, marketing, way new vocab of KPIs, return on investments. The most advantageous thing I did in regards to big purchases was hire a fractional CFO. So I hate numbers. I'm not an accountant. My brain does not work that way. Yeah. Want to drive me crazy? Put me in a meeting with Excel sheets. Some people thrive on that. I die a little bit. Yeah. So hiring a fractional CFO puts all that together, and that provided so much freedom for me to work strategy wise within the business and not worry about those numbers. They pull me in once a month. We change our trajectory based on what they find. Wonderful. Let the experts do what they do. I would say that was what I advocate for individuals starting their companies. Usually around year 2, you can afford to do a fractional CFO. Wow. And that provides so much freedom. You can pour into those other avenues of revenue stream to maintain your business and get you to goal year 3, year 5, and year 10 plus and beyond.
Wow. So you're talking about when I read about in business books and what was it, Henry Ford, these huge titans of industry are pulling together a mastermind. Is what we're doing, right? We're letting, like what you just said, let the experts do what the experts are going to do. You can't be an expert in everything. We have physical capacities that are just like, we can't do that. I can't learn everything about everything, but I can pull in the best from these different areas and help me build the thing that I'm trying to build. And so that's what I was kind of hearing from what you were saying was just like, I looked for experts to help me in these different areas. Yes, I put the business plan together and I decided how the different revenue streams were going to come into the thing, but we've got to figure out how healthy is this thing? How can we run it better? How can we run it more efficiently? And I don't know all those answers. So I've got to go and get the help from masterminds, the people that are experts in these areas to help me build the thing that I'm trying to build. And so that's one way to keep it growing. So thinking about how do you keep it going, go into it with that. Don't go, this book that I read, The Road Less Stupid, talks a lot about that. It's about how we expect things to work out. Yes, you have faith, but you do need to kind of have a plan. So have a plan on what you think you can pull some money from and then hire those people to help you. I think that's great advice. So what we talk about, and I feel like the theme of all this whole thing has been self-belief, self-doubt, kind of going back and shifting your mindset. This whole process of owning your own business and being in your own nurse entrepreneur boss is a mindset shift. And so what would be one of the last things you could tell a nurse practitioner that is dealing with the self-doubt that you're thinking, this is what I want her to hear to overcome that if I can give her one thing to just leave her with? What would it be?
Ooh, that's really good.
No pressure. No pressure.
Mm-hmm. No pressure. Mm-hmm. You want to know what? Because I would say your demographic is primarily women nurse practitioners. Yeah. And I'm going to speak to that because as nurse practitioners and women and mothers, often we're primary parents too in the household, right? And we wear a lot of hats and it can be so overwhelming. I can't speak to the number of times even not owning my own business, working at my previous jobs where it just felt like this is a lot. And you battle internally of like, should I be doing more? Should I be doing less? And I love the quote, and this really got me through the last couple of years. Ambition and contentment are not enemies. You can be content in where you're at in your stage of life. So whether that is, for me, for example, young children, and knowing if I didn't have children, I'd have 5 locations.
Come on.
Right?
You're about to touch something huge. Keep going.
But I am young-ish.
Keep going.
Relatively speaking. My children are young. That can still be my ambition and goal. But I can be very content with where my feet are right now. And what I do have is operating, being very present for my children when I'm there, very present for the business I do have and the 2 locations that are operating, and continue to grow and evolve and pour into my personal and professional life. So contentment and ambition are not enemies. You're not failing if you don't feel like you're moving at operating room speed. Okay, it is okay in those stages of life to slow down to be able to speed up. And I think that is, if you're in a place where you're like, oh, Sandy, I just can't do it right now, but you know you want to do it, that is great. Contentment and ambition are not enemies. Start planning, start strategizing, and be ready to go when you're ready to hit the pedal, right?
I love that. Are you done with that? Because it's still more. Keep going. Keep going.
That's one that has really spoke to me these last couple of years.
That is so beautiful. That is so beautiful and deep and aligns with scripture so much. I decided for this year, I wanted to read through Ecclesiastes. I don't know why, but that just book of the Bible, I was like, I'm going to read through it. And I started with chapter 1. And just this past week when I was reading it, talked about vanity and the chasing after wind. And that the most effective and beautiful thing for a human person to do, because I struggle with a lot of what you're saying, because I am the mom of young babies and I'm thinking I could make so much more if I didn't have this. And you feel like you're chasing after this. And what I don't want is to get to the end of my life and feel like all I did was just chase vapor and mist and feel super empty because I thought that this was going to bring joy and it didn't. But what you're saying and what he says in that passage of scripture is godly contentment is great gain, right? Just contentment with where you are right now. And I love what you just said, that is not in opposition to ambition. For I love these things to be grown. I would love to be able to And the part that it says in scripture is to just find the contentment with where you are right now. And that is the thing that in each stage of your life, if you've moved across this journey of life, finding contentment and enjoying where you are is everything. That is the journey, is to find contentment in every single space that you're in. Saundra, that is so deep. Girl, I'm not even going to add anything to that. I'm just going to let that be. And that's where we end this thing, because there is nothing more to say after that. You let the things that are from above just stand, and you don't have to say anything else, because you don't have to. It just stands on its own. And so, well said. I could not agree more. Yeah, I cannot agree any more with what you just said. It's beautiful. And with that, we're going to enter rapid fire, and we're going to do our SuccessNP quote of the day, and we're going to end this thing. So rapid fire, are you ready? Let's go.
Let's go.
Let's do it. Okay, if you had to pick an actress to play you on TV, who would you pick and why?
Oh my gosh. An actress on TV? I don't
Yes.
know. Sandra.
Oh, okay. Okay. Maybe a Disney princess? I don't know. What, like, because you have kids. I don't know.
Oh my gosh, you want to know an actress? What's her name? She's so Eva Mendes.
Oh my, okay. I was actually thinking Vanessa Lachey. Like, I feel like she kind of looks like you a little bit. And then I was like, but yes, Eva Mendes, I see it. Maybe like a hybrid of the two of her. That's you. Yes.
She's wonderful. She's a mom. She's just a wonderful, perceptively person. So I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. Or even Daisy Fuentes. That's another one that I could kind of see, like super driven. I think she has like clothing. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. So good. Okay. All right, second question. If you had to give a book to someone, what would it be? Yeah, what book would you give, like, to anybody?
Goodness. Okay, so I'm a mass consumer of books.
Yeah, me too.
Podcasts. I would say one of my absolute favorite books relative to this podcast, probably your consumers, would be Unseen by Sarah Haggerty. And it speaks a lot to what we talked about, ambition, contentment, what God calls into a female and her role and walk in life. And I think it talks a lot about Ecclesiastes and just being where your feet are. And I think it was one of the most freeing books I read as a female.
Okay. Definitely having to read that. That goes on the list. Okay. And then for the final question, throughout your career, throughout all your time, what do you find is the best age to be? if you could go back to a certain age, what would it be?
So this is a funny question. Forever, I resonated with the age 23. I don't know why, but now I absolutely love being in my 30s. So I would say just like 35 right now, right where I'm at. I love
right where you are. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's a good answer. I feel like that's what a lot of people give is as you get older, you start to just enjoy where you are. I think that's where that godly contentment, great gain type thing. I love that. Well, the Success NP quote is, success is knowing your purpose in life, growing to reach your maximum potential, and sowing the seeds that benefit others, which is John C. Maxwell. That guy is deep. I like his work. He does good work. I like his thoughts, and I like that quote. So where can people find you? Where can they locate you? Tell them all the things about you, Saundra.
Well, if you want to learn more about our business and business model, our website is www.wellingco.com. Yeah. Otherwise, I've got a couple pages on Instagram. That's our Welling Company Clinic, Welling Company the Spa. I do have a personal page I'm not very active in. Social media for me is just, I hire that out and it's kind of the best thing for me. But I will likely this next year start re-engaging. So yeah, there's a couple areas that you can find us, what Welling Company does, and a little bit about myself.
Well, that is great. And guys, thanks for hanging out with us. Check out Saundra, check out what she's building. Like NPs, we can build stuff. How cool is this? And so guys, just check her out. Thank you for listening to the podcast today. Thanks for your time and your energy. And guys, be well. Thanks.
Thank you so much.